Hey everybody, do you need to protect your energy? Are you an empath that's always taking on everybody else's everything? More coming up about this in just a minute. Hey everybody, I'm Adalina East, founder of Transformational Healing, former neuroscience researcher and therapist. In my many years of practice, I have learned so much about the empathic condition. And I call it condition because at times it can feel like an actual medical condition. When you're out in public and you're taking on everyone's everything, you're feeling everybody's pain. If you work with people on a daily basis, maybe you're feeling all of their energy. Someone gets into a fight with their spouse before they come into work and you're picking up all of that. I know it can be so overwhelming, and it is something that I have long struggled with. So I want to talk about that today, and then in the next video I want to give you some tips to work with that energy, to be able to blend it into your own energy so that you are able to be free. You're able to be free of other people's energy. And I also want to talk about the ways that you can do this on a more permanent basis so that you're not just constantly walking around and clearing yourself. Let's first talk about why this happens to empaths. So an empath is defined as someone who is picking up the energies of what is around them. It's a person who's empathic. It's a person who, when you go to talk to them about your issues or whatever is happening for you, you feel that connection, you feel that sense of bonding, and you know that they understand exactly what you're going through. This makes many empaths go into the career of therapeutic help or spiritual healership. And I work with all of these people consistently. I run a mentorship program and I help people learn the tools to be able to stop taking all of that energy in and be able to use their spiritual gifts to help others. When I first started this practice, I noticed that a lot of people have this ability of either clairsentience, clairaudience, all of the different clairs, right? You can see through things. You can see through what a person is going through to maybe what the root of that is. Or maybe you can hear from your guides or see from your guides what's actually happening to that person. This is such a beautiful gift, and we don't ever want to feel at odds with this gift because it's so helpful in life, and it can actually be a future career path for you as well if you choose it. So why is it that so many empaths feel everyone's everything and are having such a struggle with it? What I've always heard from my guides is that there are a few different parts of this. So let's start with the neuroscience part, because that was my background before I started doing this work. Actually, what happens in your brain if you are an empath, and this is only recently started to become studied by doctors such as Dr. Joe Dispenza and lots of other neuroscience researchers that don't get enough credit because other people take their research, but we'll get more to that later. What's actually happening in your brain is that you are hearing not only messages from spirit, but you're hearing different messages from your own brain. So if you're someone who's gone through a lot of trauma, who's been through a lot of things, your brain kind of permanently stays in that fight or flight, freeze or fawn phase. So what that means is if a person is telling you about one of their problems, or even if you're in the vicinity of a person who's going through something, you may be relating that to your own trauma, to things that have happened to you in the past. And it's not your fault. It's not something you're consciously trying to do. It's just something that's happening because that's the way our brains work. So, for example, back before I learned how to protect my energy and learned to communicate with Source in the way that I need to not even have to do that anymore, I lived in New York City, and I would get on the subway. And I didn't realize for many years how unusual this was, because New Yorkers tend to not be, or let's not even say that. New Yorkers tend to not be thought of as the friendliest people or the most chatty people with someone they don't know. But I would get on the train and I'd sit down next to someone, and 9 times out of 10, they'd start telling me whatever their trauma of the day was. I would not even say hello. I would not even speak to them. they would just start like a barrage of, oh my gosh, this happened, and then this happened, and I felt like this. And by the time I would get home or get to work, I would just feel like, oh, I have the weight of the world on my shoulders. I'm so tired already, and I just got up. Or I have the weight of the world on my shoulders, and I had a long work day, but now I want to go out for dinner with my friends and have a good time. And so what I learned through that experience was that I was holding my energy so open to everybody else's everything. My desire to help was so deep, and I hadn't really fully acknowledged that yet. And so there were no boundaries between me and other people. I hadn't figured out yet how to set boundaries with people. So for example, one thing I could have said on that train ride was, you know what? I've got a really big day ahead of me, no offense, but I can't take this in right now. Put in your earbuds, listen to music. You don't have to be there for every single person's everything. Once I learned how to do that and how to set that boundary, then other things started coming up, right? Because the universe is always going to move us towards our eventual goal and what we're meant to do with our lives. I knew I was meant to help people in some way, and I tried on a lot of different hats, right? Neuroscience research, being a therapist. I even worked in communications for a while, documenting people's stories of trauma. But the universe was pushing me towards figuring this out for myself so that I could share all of this with you. So what happened after I started setting boundaries? Well, then I was just feeling everybody's energy, right? And it was all coming at me all the time, coming at me on the subway, coming at me at work, coming at me in the grocery store. And what that was pushing me towards was how to learn how to set energetic boundaries with people that I did not know and was not even speaking to, just so that I could not be taking everything in, just so I could not be so empathic about every single energy that was around me. And so when you have these experiences, I really encourage you to look at what the universe is trying to show you. Is it trying to show you that this is a gift of yours, that you can actually transmute this gift into being something so big and so helpful to so many people, and also protective of your energy and your space? Once I started hearing people's thoughts or people's traumas, I'd started even seeing people's traumas in front of me like a movie. Then I had to get deeper with my guides and deeper with Source and figure out what that was about. And so I started diving into the neuroscience research and found that actually if you are in the presence of other people who've gone through similar traumas that you have, you can actually start to identify your life with their traumas. It's a very odd thing. Your hypothalamus and your hippocampus, your entire limbic system, is what puts you into that fight or flight phase. And so if you're in contact with someone who's also in that fight or flight, freeze or fawn moment, you can actually pick up on that and go into it yourself. And so the way that this happens is through the transmutation of energy. So let's say you are sitting next to someone on the train, in a movie, at a concert, maybe it's a family member also. If they are having all of these thoughts and all of these feelings about their traumatic past, or even just about what happened to them today, your body is constantly scanning the energy around you as a means of keeping you safe once you get caught in that fight or flight loop. And so as your body is scanning the energy around you to keep you safe, it is picking up everybody else's everything. And so it's really important to be able to set those energetic boundaries with other people so that you're not feeling everything around them, so that your limbic brain can go into a state of rest. But unfortunately, what happens is if we've already got that fight or flight, freeze or fawn momentum going, it's very hard to pump the brakes on that. And I'll show you a few tips how to do that. Hang on a second. So the second step would be to try to get yourself out of that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn momentum so that you're not picking up so much from everybody else. The other part of this that I want to introduce to you, probably a lot of you know this, but it may be a first time hearing this for some of you, is that this Karpman triangle of drama can also get involved in all of these processes. What is the Karpman triangle of drama? This is the dynamic that so many of us have in our families, so many of us have in our lives, and I actually can walk around a public space and watch it play out at this point because I've been doing this work for so long. But basically what the Karpman triangle of drama is that there is a victim, there's a perpetrator, and there's a rescuer. So just take a moment and reflect on your relationships in your family, right? Are there moments when people get into like this victimhood mentality, this victim thing, like, oh, I mean, even you can even see it in your natal family, but probably also a lot of you in your adult families, because it's a part of our culture. It's a part of our consciousness as a culture. And so it seeps into us and tends to play out. So let's say, for example, you have children and one of your children is really, really upset about something that they wanted to do that you're not able to let them do that day. Like a child wants an ice cream. It's not an ice cream day. They're already going to be having popcorn at the movies or whatever. And so there's a no to the request for ice cream. Then perhaps the other parent or another caretaker, the babysitter, a grandparent, someone says, oh, but of course they should be able to have that ice cream. That's the rescuer, right? Rescuing the child from the no ice cream situation. And then the parent who's saying no becomes the perpetrator, right? Like, no, you cannot have that ice cream. It is not happening today. So what's actually happened over time is that psychologists have noticed this triangle moving all the time. So it's not that one person is always the victim. One person is not always the perpetrator. One person is not always the rescuer. It moves based on day, based on time, based on other things that are happening in the family. So even just the very next day, that child who was the victim for not having their ice cream cone can become the perpetrator against one of their younger siblings or even against their parent, and then the triangle moves. So this is not a blame game. This is not a thing to say, oh my God, we're all so dysfunctional. How are we ever going to go on? This is just something to notice and to be aware of, that as people are processing their trauma, they are reorganizing this Karpman triangle of drama all the time. And so as people reorganize this and you're taking in all of this energy, of course, if that person is in victim mode that day, you're taking in that victim feeling, that victim mentality, and it's affecting your day. It's making you feel more like a victim for even taking that on, for even seeing that person's or hearing that person's or feeling that person's victim moment, right? And I call it a moment because it's not a forever thing. We can all heal from everything, but we all have victim moments, right? So when we start feeling all of these things, we first want to identify, is this mine? Is this really mine that I'm feeling? Or is the person sitting next to me having a victim moment, having a rescuer moment, having a perpetrator moment? Is that what I'm picking up on? And this can start to help us become aware of that empathic energy that we are drawing in towards us. Becoming aware of that empathic ability that we have, that we can train and hone to become so helpful in our lives. The next part of this that I want to talk about is that I know we have many spiritual healers here. We have many people that are involved in the healing arts. As healers and as beings of light, we tend to have more light surrounding us. So even if you wake up and it's the worst day and you're really not looking forward to getting out of bed or going anywhere, you yourself, being a person who's constantly healing themselves and trying to ascend in this global sphere that we live in now, you're holding more light than the average person. And because you're holding so much light, and there's so much of that beautiful spiritual healing energy about you, others are attracted to that. And so if we go back to that subway example of sitting on the train and having people just start telling me they're everything, or even me being able to set boundaries there and say, no, I can't hear this right now, but still feeling they're everything, their entire structure is attracted to all of the light that you encompass, All of that light is just emanating from you all the time, even if you're not trying, even in your worst moments. And so, of course, you're going to become more empathic because people are going to be sending you their darker things to ask for you to help transmute them. You may not even be conscious of this. It might not be something that you feel, but it is likely taking place around you. And so the more awareness we can gain to the fact that we are beings of light, and if all of this like energy from other people is coming at us, it's probably showing us that we are beings of light and we're meant to do something with that. We're not meant to just let it come at us and feel terrible all the time. The more awareness we have of that, the more we can help ourselves and the more we can help other people. Also, while we're on this spiritual topic, it's often channeled through me by my spiritual guides that a lot of this empathic energy that many of us carry is merely a precursor to discovering your spiritual gifts, discovering your channeling gifts or healing gifts or sound healing gifts, whatever you have going on. And so as this starts to happen to you more and more, see if you can reframe it in your mind. It's not that you're just becoming too sensitive. It's not that you're becoming too sensitive for this world. It's that your gifts are getting closer and closer. Source is coming to you and saying, hey, I'm trying to get your attention here. It's time to level up. It's time to look at your gifts. It's time to really dive in there and grow those gifts so that you can be in your fullest life purpose, but also growing your gifts blocks a lot of that other noise out. It's worked for me. It's worked for so many people that I've worked with. So often what happens to us as we're going through our spiritual awakening is that we can even start to empathically feel other spirits around us. And this is such an exciting time. I remember it being one of the most exciting times of my second or third spiritual awakening. I believe we have many throughout our lifetimes. But we can actually start to feel things from other spirits. These may be people who are related to us. It may be people who've recently passed on. Sometimes it's the ascended masters, like the archangels. But I remember at the beginning of my awakening, during that period, that second or third awakening, I started feeling spirits around me. And not only was I hearing their words to me because I'm clairaudient, but I was also feeling their stuff as well. When you feel the archangels, it feels so beautiful and so delicious. It's just like this incredible healing energy. It's beautiful and incredible. But sometimes during our awakening, we can start to feel the energies of those who've recently passed. And I know that that can be such a scary situation when it first starts to happen. It certainly was for me. If I hadn't had my grandmother's tutelage at the time, I would have definitely freaked out. So don't freak out. It's going to be okay. We're going to learn the tools to deal with this. Again, it's going to be about boundary setting. I know that for many people, this spiritual empathicness can happen the most at night. And I know that can be tricky. It can be challenging. I was working with someone last week actually in my spiritual mentorship program who's got incredible gifts of channeling, but her guides keep coming to her in the middle of the night and channeling through information. At the beginning of her awakening, it was actually people who'd recently passed on in her family who were giving her messages to give to other members of the family. We don't need to have that. That is not a part of this ascension process. It's not a part of this living a spiritual life. We want to be able to be in contact with our spirits, with our spirit guides, with everything beyond us on our terms, when it is appropriate for us. During daylight hours, when we're not trying to get a good night's sleep, when we're not in the middle of trying to do something work-wise, and all of that is possible. It's all about boundary setting. So I'm going to give you a little tip just to wrap up this video today, but I want you to join me for the next video where I'll give you lots of different tips and tools to protect your energy. So just to close out today, let's do this together. Close your eyes and envision this beautiful gold bubble all around you. And I always say this to my clients, but imagine your aura, right? So our aura extends 4 feet out from us, in front of us, behind us, to either side of us. And for some people, the aura is a lot bigger. Like if you're a manifestor in human design, apparently it goes way out there. But imagine this aura stretching out on all sides of you. And now imagine filling this whole aura with the color gold. This is a really spiritually protective color. And imagine that gold filling your entire aura, and then moving that gold out even to the outside of your aura so that you have this protection. It's almost like a cloud, protection cloud or protection bubble around you. And as you go out into the world this week, try to make it a practice. If you're feeling under the gun, if you're feeling all of everyone's empathic energy, try to make it a practice to just build this gold cloud around you before you leave the house, or even within your own house if it's happening there too. And so I invite you on this journey with us to learn more about how we can protect our energy, and to also learn more about how once you've been doing that for a while, once you've been protecting your energy for a while, you start to really feel that source energy through you, and you just don't need to do it anymore. It's like you pass through that energy and it does not faze you in the least. So I invite you to stay tuned for next week's video. We're going to talk through a few different tips that I have for clearing your energy, blending your energy with whatever's going on around you so that you're not feeling everything all the time. And I look forward to seeing you next week. If you are interested in growing your spiritual gifts, in finding that life purpose, and in finally being able to let go of everything else and just be you, solid in your spiritual gifts, I run this beautiful mentorship program, and we have rolling applications. We'll include the link below so that you can apply. I'd love to work with you.